is Jim Harnish? Well, I'm one of Mr. Wesley's preachers. That's a big part of who I am. And I'm a native of Pennsylvania. I have a twin brother who's also in the United Methodist Ministry and serves here in Michigan. We both went to college in Kentucky. That's where I met my wife, who's a native of Florida. He met his wife, who's a native of Michigan, and that framed the rest of our stories. I've been a preacher in United Methodist churches in Florida for 43 years before I retired 2 years ago. I am a father of two exceptionally brilliant women, and both of them chose very wisely in their husbands, and we have 5 spectacular grandchildren about whom I'd be happy to tell you much more. If Jesus walked the earth today, he'd look a lot more like a Palestinian Jew than we'd like to admit. Too many of our artistic representations make Jesus look a whole lot more like a white, Anglo-Saxon, brown-haired, blue-eyed American than the kind of person that he really was. And it seems to me that a part of our understanding who we are as disciples of Jesus is to understand who he was as a Jew in that culture. And many of his parables take on a whole new meaning when we hear them or read them as a word spoken by a Palestinian Jewish rabbi to a primarily Palestinian Jewish audience. Where do we see God in our society? It seems to me Jesus points toward that answer when he says that the kingdom of God is both within us, but it's also yet to come. So where I see God is where I see signs of the kingdom of God, the way Jesus described it, at work and alive in the lives of his people and of other people. Wherever the evidence of the reign and rule of God is present in our world is where God is. And that vision of the kingdom of God is yet to be fulfilled. So God is at work constantly in our world, in our lives, to fulfill God's vision for this world to become, as the book of Revelation says, and as Handel set to music, until that time when the kingdoms of this earth become the kingdoms of our God, and he will reign forever and ever. I think we find God in all of those places where God is at work for wholeness and life and justice and peace and the full life, the abundant life of the kingdom of God. As disciples of Jesus, what is the one thing we should strive to do to make our society better? I'd have to go to the core and say what Jesus said, to love God with our whole heart, mind, strength, and to love each other the way we've been loved by God. It seems to me everything else flows out of those great commandments, and that we are called to constantly be growing as followers of Christ into becoming people who are more deeply in love with God and who in very practical ways live out that love in our relationships with others. I'm drawn to that partly because it's what Jesus said, and partly because that was at the core of the Wesleyan tradition. The Wesleys really believed that it's all about the love of God, revealed in Jesus, being made real and tangible in our lives, and that growth in love is the continuous journey. Wesley called it Christian perfection, that begins in life now and is ultimately fulfilled in the life that is to come. I love the way Charles taught us to sing, changed from glory into glory, till in heaven we take our place. I think that's the image of this process of being shaped and formed into people who really love God and really love other people, particularly Jesus made clear. Our enemies, the people that are difficult to love, the marginalized, the rejected, the outcast, the hurt, the wounded, we're called to be the agents of God's love in all those places.